Hi, today we're going to talk about the three things to understand about trauma processing. And I'm Rachel McLeod. I am a mental health therapist, coach, and a therapist mentor. And I specialize in helping people do the brain work for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. The brain has a really beautiful process for this. That process does get blocked because of our design. And when we can get the brain, when we can support the brain to get that part of the process unblocked, all of a sudden it is resolving symptoms that we've had for decades, lifetimes, and very, very well. And I would even say quickly, especially yeah, since we've had them for lifetimes, it's really quick, right? We're talking maybe at length 2 hours, but most symptoms resolve when we get this process running. Most symptoms resolve in minutes, which is really cool. Anyway, that it's hard to believe. You might not even believe me when I say that. I get it. However, the brain's process for resolving symptoms is electrical, and so when that process is actually working, it's fast. It's lightning fast, and it's almost in the brain like can we connect the electrical circuits to get the process, the symptoms running and resolving, or not? And usually it's not. That's why it doesn't happen for even a lifetime. People have traumatic memories or phobias or overthinking for lifetimes because their brain can't get those wires connected. So to get the trauma processing or the symptom resolution process in the brain up and running. So there's a reason for this. It's part of our design as humans, as pack animals, and as mammals. And so when we can work with this part of the brain, and in this process, things resolve very, very quickly. And so that leads me to understanding. I want you to understand these three things about trauma processing. Um, and so I'm going to tell it to you in a specific order, but my goal is that you look at trauma processing in a very different way. I want you to look at it from my techie view over here. I want you to look at it from brain function, not as traumatic memories. I don't want you going down your traumatic memory lane because that will actually impair your process. That malfunction will occur. You'll go into fight or flight. Boo! We don't need that here. I want you to be able to put your tech goggles on and look into the brain. And because if you can see this from this perspective, all the trauma processing you do will skyrocket. It will be easier and can even become fun. And I know that's a wild statement, but it is really, really true. Because we move from reliving traumas to helping the brain process traumas. And that little shift right there is incredibly powerful. So, let's see. There was something else I just wanted to say before I dive all the way in. I don't even know. Okay, so I'm going to follow my plan. I like to add to just flow. That'll come back to me, and then we'll talk that through too. Okay. Okay, so the very first thing that I want you to understand about trauma processing is the goal of trauma processing from your brain's perspective. Okay, your perspective is you don't want to have flashbacks anymore. Yes, that is a real thing. Flashbacks are a sign your brain is actively trying to resolve the issue and it can't. And so that's a sign that your brain wants to do healing work. It's not, flashbacks are often, it felt like we are being tortured by our brain, and I get that. Trauma processing does help us resolve flashbacks. This is how I help clients resolve flashbacks, make them stop. The brain needs to complete that process and then it's done. And I'll show you why that's the case here in a little bit. But you want to do trauma processing because one of your girlfriends is nagging you about it, or because your wife is saying you need to do your inner healing work. You got trauma to process, right? There's all these reasons why you want to trauma process, but let's talk about the brain. The brain really needs to work on these traumas because this is how the brain makes sense of and understands reality, your experiences, your life, where you're at, what time frame you're in, what's going on, how you feel about it. All of that stuff happens is the brain understands it while it's processing trauma. The mind body system understands it. Without that, our prefrontal cortex and our whole brain is going to just make a bunch of stuff up. It's going to tell a bunch of stories. The subconscious mind is going to come in and like tell us stories. It's not going to match reality, right? And you have experienced this. If you've ever gotten in a fight with somebody and they're like, "What are you even talking about? How did we get from here to there?" It was a linear process in your mind, but in their mind, you just are not on the same page. That's because getting on the same page in reality happens with processing, and specifically when we're talking about anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, with trauma processing. That's your mind body systems process for understanding reality. You want that. You want that a lot. This is the difference between make believe and fantasy land and being accurate and effective where you are right now, having deep connections, being a contributor, all awesome relationship and with yourself and others, and things and goals happen here with the ability to understand reality accurately. That is highly impaired with anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, right? You feel like something bad is going to happen, and everyone's like, chill, you know, right? The emotions and the things aren't matching reality, right? So that's one of the goals that we have here with trauma processing. We want your mind body system is trying to process trauma so it can get present and understand what's going on. You want to be present, trauma processing. You want to be available to the now moment, trauma processing. There's so much of this stuff that runs unconsciously that our mind body system has to be preoccupied with on an unconscious level. So you're not even aware that they're preoccupied with this, that make it so that you cannot be present in the moment. And so your mind body system has a process for getting present and being accurate with reality. That's the goal of trauma processing. The goal of trauma processing is not to pretend that this never happened, to bury the traumas. That's not effective trauma processing. To hop over, let's just think about the good. That's not trauma processing. That doesn't actually help the brain understand reality, get accurate, and help you kick some tail end around here in the game of life, right? Score some points. So that we want processing to occur. Now, let me just say this right here so that we're not feeling super overwhelmed. The more your brain is working this process, the better and faster it gets. People with complex PTSD, because this process did not get worked a lot, your brain didn't get this type of support early on. We're having to basically do a new build. The trauma processing in the beginning is very slow. And so, because we're actually building the neurology for processing stuff, we're building new relationships, the neurology for new relationships with emotions and yourself and all these things going on. So, but as you keep going, it's faster and faster and faster and faster. It becomes something that you really rely on and look forward to, and keeps you up, because trauma processing, the one of the goals of it is to help your brain shift from survival mode to thrive focus, focusing on thriving, wellness, those sorts of things. That happens when the traumas get processed. If they don't get processed, the brain's working on processing trauma constantly, unconsciously. This is one of the reasons why people can't sit still, can't relax. They have to be constantly stimulated with distractions and things like that, because actually they're doing a brain trick to make sure that the brain can't process, because that process is malfunctioning. And so we've learned, just don't run it at all. Just keep distracting so the brain can't shift into trauma processing, because that process doesn't work. And so we don't actually get that. We stay in processing mode, which is still, we're still in survival mode when that's going on, because your brain didn't get to understand reality. Your mind body system didn't get to understand reality. It didn't get to understand what happened. And so it's kind of scared and spooked. Like, what if that happens again? I don't even know what that was. And once the trauma gets processed, the system's like, oh, okay, yeah, that was pretty terrible. And okay, yeah, okay. But it happened, it's analyzing, it's very accurate now. And it will move you into safety and then to thrive. And it understands that happened in the past, it's not currently running. That's one of the benefits and the goals of trauma processing, and that your brain, your mind body system understands when this event took place. if that doesn't get processed, your brain, your neurology feels like it's happening right now all the time because it didn't go through the part of the brain during the processing process that gave it a date stamp, where the mind body system finally understands that that it happened in 2007. Right now, your system understands that, and you don't have to remind it or tell it. And now it files it accurately, and it's like it's running very nicely. It's not just like, I don't know where this belongs. Maybe it's here, or right here in your moment where you're trying to relax, or hang out with your baby, or work on your goals and all the things. It doesn't belong there, but your mind body system needs to sort that out for you. Okay, so that's one of the goals of trauma processing. And then what also one of the goals that happens this is that we become more efficient and effective because we understand better. It's just like if you were a mechanic and you were looking outside of the car and you were watching, you were trying to diagnose the problem, you're not going to be as effective as if you get in there and look around and see what's going on. And then you're like, oh, now we're efficient and we're effective. We're taking a little bit more time to understand the problem. Once we see it clearly, we're just doing one switch, and that's really what I help people do is we're looking at the problem, and then we're helping the brain resolve that one thing. We're connecting circuits, and it's running, and the brain is able to really sort it from there. We're working smarter, not harder. So that's the goal. The goal is that your mind body system understands and is able to analyze and is able to upgrade as a result of understanding and processing the trauma. That's what we're trying to accomplish. We're not just trying to have you talk about traumas so that you can get all upset and distressed and whatever. And no, and that's my part number 2. Okay. I'm going to talk part 3. The third thing I want you to understand about trauma processing is the process. I'm going to walk you through the layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got a couple, but they're going to go kind of fast. That part's going to go down. That's a downhill part of this. But I'm going to walk you through. I want you to see the techie layers of trauma processing. If you ever start trauma processing, you'll notice yourself hit these different milestones. Your brain will do this naturally if the process is running. If your brain's trauma processing is running effectively, you're going to watch these things happen. This is what I watch. These are the markers I use. This is how I tell where we're at in the trauma processing process. And it happens every time. It's like clockwork. Brains have a process. And you can watch it happen. And the more you do this work, the more you will watch this happen. I teach people to do this work for themselves. Even my therapy clients, my coaching clients, yes, we work together. And I'm also teaching them how to work with their brain themselves because their brain needs support in real time when they're in the shower, on the car rides, having conversations with their children or their spouses. They need it then. I'm not there. And I'm not trying to be there. And so there's a lot brains love the support. So when you can provide the support yourself, it's wonderful. Brains love that. And then also you'll watch yourself go through the process, and it helps you not freak out because you're like, is this ever gonna end? It's like, where am I at in this process? And you can actually see exactly where you're at in the process. Okay, and that leads me to the second thing I want you to understand about trauma processing, which is in all phases of this, your body has to be able to keep up with the trauma processing. Okay. And this is what this means. Your thinking center is so fast. It can think through a trauma 17,000 times before the body is able to complete its process. And every loop, every thinking through it all that time creates chemicals that the body has to work on. And it creates electrical activity that the body has to do. Every time you're thinking through this thing, your body has to do the cleanup, the repair, the thought production. Those are chemicals, right? Those are actually happening in the physical realm. Your body has to keep up with the trauma work. Okay, I could say, I as a trauma therapist, especially with people who are not trauma therapists doing trauma therapy in a climate like that. And also, as I help people do their work, I promise you, I want to say that 100 times right now for the rest of this time. I just want to repeat the body has to keep up with the trauma work. Okay? This does not succeed if your body doesn't keep up with the trauma work. If you go running ahead and you tell everybody about your traumas and you're doing all stuff and your body is not keeping up with you, you are re-traumatizing yourself. If you're sitting in an office and your therapist is having you talk about this stuff and your body is not keeping up, you are being re-traumatized. And this sets you back. And your body is learning and sending signals to your brain that trauma processing is dangerous. And that, I think, is awful. I think that's a shame. I have lots of feelings about that. I need to kind of pipe down here a little bit. Okay? So, because if we can keep the body up to like up with the process, if we can work this process at the speed that your body can handle, we're winning. And this is good because in those traumatic memories and experiences, wasn't your body forcing the stuff that it couldn't really handle? It just had to take it and deal with it. That's how trauma happens. We overload the body with stuff it didn't ask for, it didn't consent to, it didn't want, it wasn't ready for it, and it was too much. So now, as we're doing trauma processing, we are working with the body kindly to bring it along this process that is full of pain and awfulness in a way that is gentle and supportive and is accurate to it. It is just the right support it needs and wanted. And I want to tell you, I just love the whole body. I love bodies. It is trying to help you process traumas. It is part of what's going on. Those knots in your stomach are actually your body trying to help the trauma processing. I know it hurts. I know you don't understand why that's happening. It's nauseous, it's inconvenient, but it's your body saying, I have some information here. I'm speaking to you in my language, which is stomach cramps. And I want to tell you something. I have some information I want to send to the top. I have something to contribute here. And when we take that contribution and we actually get it through the processor, all of a sudden the top of the brain is like, oh my gosh, look at all this wonderful data. Thank you so much, stomach. We were looking for this. I know, stomach says, but stomach has gone back to work and is back to its job, right? It has lots of jobs and it really can't be spending a ton of time trying to get a message up for decades that other parts of your brain just reject, right? So bodies have a lot of work to do, plus they are key essential parts of the trauma process. And so we want to make their job easy because they have so much work to do and they're slower. Bodies are slower than prefrontal cortexes. So many of the exercises I give people, and this is behind the scenes tricks, is to distract their prefrontal cortex so their body can catch up with this trauma process, right? And I teach them how to do this because prefrontal cortexes are just prefrontal. They just do what they do. They're not trying to be malicious, running around, stealing the show, grabbing the microphone. Let's not talk to stomach. Let me tell you all about it. Let me tell you all the stories that I could tell you about this. And oh my gosh, and this happened this one time. And right? That's prefrontal cortex time. Time's like they're way faster than that. Right? Your body's like, let me tell you about that thing right? And the prefrontal, we don't have time for this. Let me just tell you, right? There's a cooperation. This is your team. This is your team, right? Every player matters. And let me tell you this, I'm being all sassy here over here in defense of the body. I got all sassy and now I don't know what I was going to say. Oh yeah, let me tell you this. At the end of the day, if you don't get the trauma out of the body, if the body does not complete its process to deliver the reports of the trauma, if it does not go through its process, you don't overcome anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. You get to understand it because your prefrontal cortex ran all around it, measured everything, understands all the things, predicts it, intellectualizes all the things. But those signals, the contribution of the body, that stomach cramp, is still going to happen and you're still going to feel the messages that are coming up, but they're not in your language yet. So you don't get to know what they mean because they actually have to get through to the parts of the brain that will translate body into prefrontal cortex. And now you'll have the insights and the epiphanies. that come from the body's contribution to this, which is how we create wholeness and how we bring all the players to the game and how we create wellness and teamwork, right? That's one of the goals of trauma processing. I didn't even say that. I should have said that in the beginning. I just added that to the goals. But it's harmony, it's internal, it's the difference between a kindergarten basketball team and a professional team. A professional team's working all together. In the kindergarten team, you got one that could dribble the ball and do all the things, and you got everyone else. Some are picking daisies, some are pushing each other, some are cartwheeling, and you got one that knows what they're doing, right? That's great, but your life is requiring you to go against, and if we're talking sports talk, right, to go against life, which has all of its players in line, has been doing this since the beginning of time. And and you're over here, your prefrontal cortex is rocking, your thinking center is jamming, but the rest of you doesn't know how to do any trauma processing because they didn't get the support. They actually don't know how to do it, and they're all working in a disharmonious way. They're not connecting. Okay, and the key to this is the body. If your body falls behind in the trauma processing, not only do you re-traumatize, but you do not get rid of symptoms. Okay, I think I have preached my message and the message of the body, and research shows this. So a great book for this is The Body Keeps the Score. This is hopefully revolutionizing therapy because it's so important. This will revolutionize parenting because it's so important. This will revolutionize sports and athletics and goal setting and goal reaching. And people are already using this. Top performers are already aware of this. I want you to be a top performer with resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. So, okay. I got close to 100 times saying the same thing, but all right. Now, I want to show you signs that the body is not keeping pace with the trauma processing. So that if you notice this, you're going to slow down. You are going to pause. You are going to take a break. You are going to support your body. Do not push past the body. That is unkind. Okay. And I'm not saying that shame wise. I'm thinking about all the times we push people past we push kids away from their body. We push people past their body because time is running. We don't have time for this. And things need to be done. You guys can't, there's so many reasons why we push past the body. And I have no solution for how to correct this in real time, but in trauma processing, I do. Okay. And over in this land, I want to influence that very heavily. Okay. When signs of overloading your body are dissociation. If you start dissociating, your body is overloaded with the trauma processing. This is why people are having feelings of dissociation, derealization, depersonalization. They're checking out places and finding themselves at their destination, don't know how they got there. A type of dissociation is because, and remember, just trauma processing isn't just happening in a therapy session. Your mind body system is trying to accomplish that all of the time. It is a brain process. It is a mind body system process. As therapists, we teach people to influence this. We work with that process to help your mind body system accomplish the work, because then you get the growth and the thriving and the growth. Okay. If you're dissociating, your body is not keeping up with the process. So we need to provide some supports there. If you're experiencing dysregulation, high levels of dysregulation, you're crying uncontrollably, you're hyperventilating, you're passing out, you're falling asleep during trauma processing, or getting super sleepy, can be a sign, is often a flag for dysregulation. And in that case, I have this happen a lot. People will get sleepy because I'm learning the pace of people, and I'm checking, is this because we have processed and reduced adrenaline and cortisol levels, and so people are just being tired? Or are we in a survival state and the brain is shutting down, is saying it's too much? I'm checking in. I want to know what that is. And so right there, we're going to figure that out. And there are signs there. I can't, my brain, I didn't write it down in advance. My brain doesn't want to do that right now. I'll think about that and maybe put it in another live. I'll watch myself in one of those processes and be like, what is she doing? Anyway, I'll tell you. But in this space, so if it's going to sleep, becoming really tired can be a shutdown response that says the body, we're moving too fast for the body. The body is not keeping up. Um, I can't think of any other rocking. If you're seeing yourself do things, I've got my clients. I watch them. I'm watching their body language. I'm tracking this. There's some tells. I've got a client that will do this if she's dysregulated, and I'm like, oh, hold up, we'll slow down, and so we'll slow down. We'll hold space there. We're gonna add some more intervention use. I've got. One of my tells is that I'm tingling in my arms. If I'm tingling on my arms, I need to slow down and help my body. There's tells that we have. You can look for them in yourself. The emotional, mental dysregulation. Let's talk about those. This is racing thoughts. It's not really the body, and so we can help with that. But it is the body has to deal with that. But um, it's mental dysregulation, which applies, right? Um, Also, another thing that we'll see that says the body's not keeping up is avoidance. It's like the survival system's receiving the messages from the body. I don't want to do this. This is awful. Too much pain. The survival system's listening to the body and monitoring the body just like I am. I'm looking for the body. It's doing a better job than I am, but the body and the survival system and I are like, how you doing, body? But the survival system is doing a whole lot better, and the body is sending signals to the survival system that we will never be conscious of, right? But one of the things that we'll notice is avoidance. And if we're starting to see avoidance, that's the survival system heard the body is like, I got you, buddy. I don't care if anybody else hears you, I hear you, and we are not doing that. We're gonna, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna send us on an ice cream run. And then when we get there, we're going to call 4 of our friends. And then we're actually going to make sure that we miss our therapy appointment. Oh, just by 15 minutes, but it'll be too much because then you're going to be too ashamed to go. And then your survival system's behind all this. And sabotaging and avoiding and resisting. Oh, and you know what? It's time for a nap. Let's go to sleep, right? So all these strategies come up are the body's avoidance. The survival system is responding to whatever signals the body is sending that we don't know yet. But we'll see it in avoidance and resistance. And so those are big signs. We want to keep pace with those things. I tell my clients, tell me all about the resistance. Tell me about when you didn't want to come to therapy today. Tell me about how your stomach started being like, I want to hear all about it because that tells me what pace we're moving at. I want your body to like the pace we're working at right now. Oh, I am very late, people. I have to actually wrap this up. I'm going to come back to this. We're going to do a part 2, and I'm going to tell you about the process. Okay, so we only got 2 today, but I had a fabulous time. I fell into the timeless hole that exists around me sometimes, and I will come back later. So, cliffhanger. Take care. Bye.